James is a mixed traffic engine. He can pull both freight cars and coaches. He's proud of his smart red paint, and so is his driver. Everyone says you brighten up their day, James. One morning, James whistled loudly at the other engines. "Look at me. I am the smartest, most useful engine on the line." "Rubbish," replied Thomas. "We're all useful. Sir Topham Hatt says so, and he's head of the whole railway." "You know what, James?" added Percy. "What?" replied James. "You're getting all puffed up." James huffed away. Later, he was still boasting. "I'm the pride of the line." "I saw you pulling freight cars," snorted Gordon. "You're only a goods engine." "I pull coaches, too." "Not as much as I do." "But Sir Topham Hatt has plans for me." James was only making this up, but Gordon believed him. "What plans?" Wait and see." "Oh dear," he thought. "Now what'll I do?" Thomas was shunting shining new coaches. "Good morning, James." "Are those coaches for me?" asked James hopefully. "No, these are for Gordon's Express. I'll fetch your freight cars next." But James was going to play a trick on the other engines. "Actually, Thomas, I'm taking the coaches. Sir Topham Hatt asked me to tell you." "What about the cars?" asked Thomas. Give them to Gordon." "Come on, Thomas," said his driver. "Orders are orders." So when James's driver returned, James was coupled to the coaches and he puffed away. Thomas returned with the freight cars, and a few minutes later, Gordon arrived. "Where's the express?" Thomas told him about James. "And so here are your cars." Gordon was very cross, and so was his driver. Wait till Sir Topham Hatt hears about this. Meanwhile, James was enjoying himself enormously. "What a clever plan! What a clever plan!" he chuffed. Then he saw Sir Topham Hatt. "Some jokes are funny, but not this one, James. You have caused confusion." "Yes, sir," said James. "You will now stay in your shed until you are wanted." The other engines teased James. "I wonder who'll be pulling the express today," said Gordon. "I expect it'll be you," replied Henry. "James is stuck in the shed for being silly." James felt sad. Next morning, he went back to work. "Hello," whistled Thomas. "Good to see you out and about again." "I'm sorry I tricked you," said James. "Are these my cars?" "Yes," replied Thomas kindly. "They are pleased to have you back." James set off to the harbor with his train of freight cars. He bustled about all day, pushing and pulling them into place. "Time to go home now, James," said his driver at last. "No cars or passengers, just we two." But his driver was wrong. "Excuse me," called a man. "I have a meeting with Sir Topham Hatt, and I mustn't be late. May I ride back with you?" "Of course," replied James's driver. Then he whispered to James, "This gentleman is a railway inspector." James was most impressed. He steamed along the line as smoothly and quickly as he could. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting on the platform, and the railway inspector greeted him warmly. "This clever engine gave me a splendid ride. You must be proud of him." "Yes, indeed. Once again, you are a really useful engine."
tank engine puffed happily along his branch line with Annie and Clarabelle. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting on the platform. He looked at his watch. "Well done, Thomas. You are right on time and really reliable." "Thank you, sir," whistled Thomas. "Ooh, right on time and really reliable," hummed the coaches. But the big engines were not feeling cheerful at all. "Where's Percy?" mumbled Henry. "He's supposed to fetch our coaches." "We get no rest," complained James. He edged angrily onto the turntable and spoke rudely to Henry. "What's the matter, Henry? There's no rain today. Stop worrying and do some work instead." "I'm not afraid of getting wet anymore," huffed Henry. "Anyway, you look silly enough to be a clown. You should join the circus." "Oh," whistled Percy. "So you've heard the news?" "What news?" "About the circus." "Percy, what are you talking about?" "The circus has arrived," explained Percy. "I've been shunting special cars. Sir Topham Hatt needs your help, too." The engine soon forgot to be tired and cross. Until it was time for the circus to leave. Then Gordon and Henry were cross all over again when James got to pull the train away. Later, Sir Topham Hatt returned. "Come along, Henry. A tunnel is blocked down the line. You must take some workmen to investigate." Pushing cars, grumbled Henry. They stopped outside the tunnel. The workmen went inside. It was very dark and quiet, but not for long. "Help!" shouted the workmen, and they ran out. "We started to dig at the block, but it grunted and moved," one said. "Rubbish," said the foreman. "It's not rubbish. It's big and alive. We're not going in there again." "Right," said the foreman. "I'll ride in the cars and Henry shall push it out." Said Henry unhappily. He had been shut in the tunnel for being afraid of the rain, but this was worse. Something big and alive was inside. "Peep, peep. I don't want to go in." "Neither do I," said his driver, "but we must clear the line." "Oh dear, puffed Henry. Then there was trouble. The block was indeed alive and very strong. It began to push the train backwards. Out of the tunnel came Henry, then the cars, and last of all, a large, cross elephant. "Well, I never!" cried the foreman. The workman gave him some cake. He drank 3 buckets of water and was just about to drink another when Henry let off steam. Cried the elephant. Water went all over Henry. Poor Henry. The elephant and his keeper were soon reunited, but Henry was most upset. "An elephant pushed me. An elephant hosed me." That night he told the other engines all about it. Gordon and James felt sorry for Henry, but still teased him. "First the rain, then an elephant. Whatever will you be afraid of next?" "Never mind, Henry," murmured Thomas. "I think you were brave today, and really reliable, too."
Duck and Percy enjoy their work at the harbor, pulling and pushing cars full of cargo to and from the quay. But one morning, the engines were exhausted. The harbor was busier than ever. Sir Topham had promised that another engine would be found to help them. Huh, it's about time, said Percy. I ache so much I can hardly get my wheels to move, agreed Duck. They waited for the engine to arrive. It came as a shock when he did. Good morning, squirmed Diesel in his oily voice. The two engines had not worked with Diesel for a long time. What are you doing here? Gasped Duck. Your worthy top, Sir Topham had sent me. I hope you are pleased to see me again. I am to shunt some dreadfully tiresome cars. Shunt where? Said Percy suspiciously. Where? Why, from here to there, purred Diesel, and then again from there to here. Easy, isn't it? With that, Diesel, as if to make himself quite clear, bumped some cars hard. Oh! Screamed the cars. Grrr! Growled Diesel. Percy and Duck were horrified. They did not trust Diesel at all. They refused to work and would not leave their shed. Sir Topham Hatt was enjoying his tea and iced bun when the telephone rang. So there's trouble in the harbor yard? I'll be there right away. Diesel was working loudly and alone. Cargo lay on the quay. Ships and passengers were delayed. Everyone was complaining about Sir Topham Hatt's railway. Percy and Duck were sulking in their shed. What's all this? Demanded Sir Topham Hatt. We're on strike, sir, said Percy nervously. Yes, added Duck. Beg pardon, sir, but we won't work with Diesel, sir. You said you sent him packing, sir. I have to give Diesel a second chance, replied Sir Topham Hatt. I'm trying to help you by bringing Diesel here. Now you must help me. He was the only engine available. Percy and Duck went sadly back to work. Next morning, things were no better. Diesel's driver had not put his brakes on properly, and Diesel started to move. He went bump, straight into Percy. Wake up there, Percy, scowled Diesel. You have work to do. He didn't even say he was sorry to Percy. Later, Diesel bumped the car so hard that the loads went everywhere. What will Sir Topham Hatt say? Gasped Percy. He won't like it, said Duck. So who's going to tell him, I wonder? Two goody-goody tattletales like you, I suppose? Percy and Duck did not want to be tattletales, so they said nothing. Diesel, thinking he could get away with his bad behavior, was ruder than ever. Next day, he was shunting freight cars full of china clay. He banged the cars hard into the buffers, but the buffers weren't secure. The silly cars were sunk. Sir Topham Hatt heard the news. The cars were hoisted safely from the sea, but the clay was lost. Sir Topham Hatt spoke severely to Diesel. The harbor master has told me everything. Things worked much better here before you arrived. I shall not be inviting you back. Now, Duck and Percy, I hope you won't mind having to handle the work by yourselves again. Oh, no, sir. Yes, please, sir, replied the engines. Whistling cheerfully, they puffed back to work, while Diesel sulked slowly away.
Oliver and his brake van, Toad, liked working in the big yards, but one morning Toad noticed that Oliver was unhappy. He decided to find out why. Excuse me, Mr. Oliver. It seems to me that things are not well with you. If you forgive me for mentioning it. You're quite right, Toad. All I do is shunt these freight cars onto the turntable. I long for a nice run. It's what an engine really needs. Quite so, Mr. Oliver. May I suggest that you speak to Sir Topham Hatt about your problems? But Oliver said nothing. He just grew unhappier, and he was rough with the freight cars. You're no good, Oliver. You're dangerous. We want Percy. Percy's far too busy to be bothered with the likes of you. And Oliver bumped the freight cars hard. "You silly engine," shouted a workman. "It'll take a long time to repair this turntable, which will cause confusion and delay." That night, Sir Topham had arrived. "Oliver, you have caused confusion. I thought you could control freight cars. You shall work the mail train for a while. Maybe the night air will clear your smoke box." "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir," said Oliver sadly. "Cheer up, old chap," said his driver. "The mail train run is a grand run for a fine engine like you." Oliver smiled, but he still felt he had let everyone down. His driver took them along the coastal run with the mail train. The fresh air couldn't help but brighten Oliver's spirits. They made good speed until it was time to collect some important mail from Harold the helicopter. "Come on, Harold!" At last, Harold landed. "Sorry I'm late, Great Western. Had a bit of a problem with one of my arms. Kept letting me down when I was meant to be up. You know how it is." "We know that we'll be late for our first run," replied Oliver's driver. Soon they were on their way again. Ahead was a red signal light. Oliver didn't realize that the signalman had dozed off. Oliver whistled several times, but the signal stayed red. "There must be something wrong with that signal. We'll go slowly and stop by the signal box," said his driver. But they never reached it. The points before the signal box were switched to an old track. They were going the wrong way. Oliver's fireman was concerned. "We need to find a water tower soon." Instead, they saw an old station. Disaster lay ahead. Meanwhile, Sir Topham Hatt was worried. "Oliver has not returned. We'll send out a search party." Soon he was high in the sky with Harold. "There they are." "It wasn't Oliver's fault," sighed the driver. "I'm aware of that. I'm just glad to see you are all safe." Then he saw something. It was an empty old house beside the station. He went to inspect it. When he returned, he spoke to Oliver. "You have found another attraction for our island. We'll make this house as good as new, and visitors can have tea and crumpets there." Sighed Oliver. "Getting lost can be interesting, but being found is much nicer. Especially when it makes an engine feel really useful." Bill and Ben, the tank engine twins, work in the clay mines and quarries near Brendam Docks. Their work is important, but it can be hot and dirty. Sometimes this makes the twins naughty. One morning they were feeling very naughty indeed. "That's my line of cars," huffed Bill. "It's not. It's mine," snorted Ben. "Yours is over there. It's mine. It's not. It's mine. It's not." Their friend Boko was worried. "Stop quarreling, you two, or the only thing you'll have left to share is trouble." "Silly," snapped Bill. "Silly yourself," grumbled Ben. "Bill and Ben, behave yourselves," said Sir Topham Hatt. "It's clear to me that we need another diesel to help out. There is only one available. He's new and keen to make an impression." "If I were you," whispered Boko, "I'd get back to work right away." Meanwhile, Sir Topham Hatt was having doubts about his own decision. "I hope the new diesel doesn't cause even more confusion. He's bound to have teething troubles." And he was right. my grease and oil. I wasn't expecting this hill. Oh, what's that? Boko came to the rescue. Sorry, said the diesel. I'm all hot and bothered. I've got teething troubles, you know. The news soon spread. Apparently it's teething troubles, confided Thomas to Percy. Hey, you two. This new diesel's got a toothache. Good luck. Why does Percy want to wish us good luck? Asked Bill. Because he knows we'll need it. A diesel with a toothache must be the worst diesel of all. Then their manager spoke to them. You will take your loads to the docks and rest there tonight. There's a lot of hard work to do tomorrow. It was dark when the twins reached the docks. They left the freight cars by the quay and scurried off to the shed. You do look glum, sighed Duck. It's the new diesel's fault, replied Bill. He's got a toothache. He hasn't got a toothache, he's got teething troubles. That means he's new and this causes some problems. In his case, it's his cooling system. Next morning, the twins heard an unfamiliar whistle. Oh no! It's the new diesel! And it was. Hello. I'll soon sort this train out. You take the front and I'll push from behind. What fun! All went well as they set off. Then they came to a hill. Come on! Come on! Push harder, you silly diesel! Shouted Ben. But the diesel couldn't push any harder. I'm overheating again. Oh, Pa! Snorted Bill. You know what? Sighed the driver. Let's try and finish the journey anyway. It means we'll have to pull the diesel as well. Can you do it, twins? We'll try! And sure enough, they could. That night, Sir Topham Hatt came to see them. Well done, Bill and Ben. I've sent the new diesel back to the works. Can you manage alone? Oh, yes, sir. Boko, whispered Bill. I'm sorry we were rude to you. And, added Ben, the new diesel was really quite friendly. And you know what friends do? Murmured Duck. No, what? They always say goodnight to each other. And so they did. But they still chatted about the diesel and his teething troubles all night long.
One day, Edward was in the shed where he lived with the other engines. They were all bigger than Edward and boasted about it. The driver won't choose you again, said Gordon. He wants strong engines like us. But the driver and fireman felt sorry for Edward. Would you like to come out today? Oh, yes, please, said Edward. So they lit his fire, made lots of steam, and Edward puffed away. The other engines were very cross at being left behind. Edward worked hard all day. The coaches thought he was very kind, and the driver was very pleased. I'm going out again tomorrow, Edward told the other engines that night. What do you think of that? But he didn't hear what they thought, for he was so tired and happy that he fell asleep at once. Next morning, Edward woke up to find nothing had changed. Gordon was still boasting. You watch me, little Edward, as I rush through with the express. That will be a splendid sight for you. Goodbye, little Edward. Look out for me this afternoon. Edward went off to do some shunting. He liked shunting. It was fun playing with freight cars. He would come up quietly and give them a push. Then he would stop, and the silly freight cars would go bump into each other. "Oh!" they cried. "Whatever is happening?" Edward played till there were no more freight cars. Then he stopped to rest. Presently, he heard a whistle. Gordon was cross. Instead of nice shining coaches, he was pulling a dirty freight train. "A freight train, a freight train, a freight train," he grumbled. "The shame of it, the shame of it, oh, the shame of it." Edward laughed and went to find some more freight cars. Then there was trouble. "Gordon can't get up the hill," the porter called to Edward's driver. "Will you take Edward and push him, please?" They found Gordon halfway up and very cross. His driver and firemen were talking to him severely. "You're not trying." "I can't do it," said Gordon. "The noisy freight cars hold an engine back so." Edward's driver came up. "We've come to push." "No use at all," said Gordon. "You wait and see," replied Edward's driver. They brought the train back to the bottom of the hill. "I'm ready," said Edward. "No good," grumbled Gordon. They pulled and pushed as hard as they could. "I can't do it! I can't do it! I can't do it!" puffed Gordon. "I will do it! I will do it! I will do it!" puffed Edward. Edward pushed and puffed and pushed as hard as ever he could. And almost before he realized it, Gordon found himself at the top of the hill. "I've done it! I've done it! I've done it!" he said proudly. He forgot all about kind Edward and didn't say thank you. Edward was left out of breath and far behind, but he was happy because he had been so helpful. At the next station, he found that the driver and firemen were very pleased with him. The fireman gave him a nice long drink, and the driver said, "I'll get out my paint tomorrow and give you a beautiful coat of blue with red stripes. Then you'll be the smartest engine in the shed." Enjoying their new job on the island of Sodor, but they do look old-fashioned and did need new paint. James was very rude whenever he saw them. "Yuck! What dirty objects," he would say. At last, Toby lost patience. "James," he asked, "why are you red?" "I am a splendid engine," answered James, "ready for anything. You never see my paint dirty." "Oh," said Toby innocently. "That's why you once needed bootlaces, to be ready, I suppose." James went redder than ever and snorted off. It was such an insult to be reminded of the time a bootlace had been used to mend a hole in his coaches. At the end of the line, James left his coaches and got ready for his next train. It was a slow freight, stopping at every station to pick up and set down cars. James hated slow freight trains. Dirty cars from dirty siding. Yeah! Starting with only a few, picked up more and more cars at each station till he had a long train. At first, the freight cars behaved well, but James bumped them so crossly that they were determined to get back at him. Presently, they approached the top of Gordon's Hill. Heavy freight trains halt here to set their brakes. James had had an accident with cars before and should have remembered this. "Wait, James, wait," said the driver, but James wouldn't wait. He was too busy thinking what he would say to Toby when they next met. The freight car's chance had come. "Hurrah! Hurrah!" they laughed, and banging their bumpers, they pushed him down the hill. "On! On!" yelled the cars. "I've got to stop! I've got to stop!" groaned James. Disaster lay ahead. Something sticky splashed all over James. He had run into 2 tar wagons and was black from smokebox to cab. He was more dirty than hurt. But the tar wagons and some cars were all to pieces. Toby and Percy were sent to help and came as quickly as they could. "Look here, Percy," exclaimed Toby. "Whatever is that dirty object? That's James, didn't you know?" "It's James's shape," said Toby. "But James is a splendid red engine, and you never see his paint dirty." James pretended he hadn't heard. Toby and Percy cleared away the unhurt cars and helped James home. Sir Topham Hatt met them. "Well done, Percy and Toby," he turned to James. "Fancy letting your cars run away. I am surprised. You're not fit to be seen. You must be cleaned at once. Toby shall have a new coat of paint." "Please, sir, can Henrietta have one too?" said Toby. "Certainly, Toby." "Oh, thank you, sir. She will be pleased." All James could do was watch Toby as he ran off happily with the news. The engines were finding life difficult. Workmen were mending the viaduct on the main line. The arches needed strengthening. Sir Topham Hatt did not want to close the railway while the work was done, and so repairs took a long time. The engines had to take great care when crossing the viaduct, and the delay often made them late on their journey to the junction, where they knew Thomas would be ready to collect his passengers. Thomas grew crosser and crosser. "Time's time," he grumbled. "Why should I keep my passengers waiting while Henry and James dawdle about all day on viaducts?" "Don't blame me," snorted Henry. "If we hurried across the viaduct, it might collapse, and then you'd have no passengers at all. What would you do then?" "Run my train on time, for one thing," retorted Thomas. He hurried away before Henry could answer. Bertie was impatient too. He was timed to arrive just after Thomas. His passengers found that instead of going straight from the bus to their train, they were kept waiting till Thomas arrived. Soon Bertie grew cross with Thomas. Late again, he remarked, as Thomas panted wearily in. We may be friends, but I thought you could go fast, Thomas. It's time we had another race. I reckon I could beat you now. Thomas let off steam loudly. Rubbish, he hissed fiercely. It's those mainline engines. They dither about on the viaduct, and they blame Sir Topham Hatt's workmen. It's just an excuse for laziness, if you ask me. One day, James was later than ever at the junction. I'm sorry, Thomas, he puffed. I was held up at the station, and the viaduct made it worse. It's lucky for you I'm a guaranteed connection, grumbled Thomas. Before James could answer, he puffed importantly away. Come along, he panted to the coaches. Annie and Clarabelle did their best, but Thomas soon found that he couldn't save much time. Suddenly, Thomas saw Bertie ahead. His radiator was steaming. What's the matter? Asked Thomas. You should be at the station by now. You're late. I feel dreadful, moaned Bertie. All upset inside, and driver says he can't make me better. Thank goodness you're late, too. Can you take my passengers, please? They'll never get home otherwise. Of course, agreed Thomas. He now felt sorry for Bertie and promised to get help at the next station. Thomas set off again. Already he felt much more cheerful, and Bertie's passengers, traveling in Annie and Clarabelle, all reached home safely. When Bertie was better, he came to thank Thomas. I'm sorry I teased you about being late. That's all right, replied Thomas. I'm glad I could help. There are times when being late isn't such a bad thing after all. With a last cheerful greeting, the two friends went back to work.